and we are nurturing a sense of otherness and creating the other, just to be able to create or to be clear with who we are. If we come with this, it's going to be very dangerous. It's all this business, all this discussion about identity perceived as a very closed world where this is me, this is us, in order to say who we are not. So we are not basing our understanding of our relationship on principles, and we accept sometimes for others what we don't accept for ourselves. And sometimes it's at the highest level. You know, with all what is happening, for example, today in Egypt, and I have been, asked about this. I say, let us be consistent, that we need freedom for ourselves, and we lack democracy for ourselves. Let us ask the same for the other. That it's not for the sake of security, let us have dictatorship there and democracy here. Like this we are secure. That's not consistent. This is a betrayal of our principles. It's just talking about ourselves, my security, whatever happens to you. Ethics, independence of ethics means that you have to have this self-critical approach. Too much of us protecting our interests, forgetting our principles in the name of security and stability. I think that cannot work like that. One day the people are going to say, what about us? Don't we have the same dignity as you? I think that we have to listen to these voices, and especially with people not having the same power as we have, because at the end of the day, we have power. And we have the power of the industrialized society, the advanced society, and we have to take this as a responsibility to be able to come with this ethics and these values and these principles. And this is something which is a great responsibility. I don't agree with all these people who are sitting and blaming the governments. Because at the end of the day, we have the governments we deserve. We also have to be involved in the discussion and say, this is our business. We are involved in the process. And independence of ethics means that we have to look at principles and to promote the principles, whatever is the situation of our country. But it means also to be courageous, like Yang, for example, a Chinese philosopher of the 15th century, who went against his own principle by saying, I'm going to lose my job, but this civil servant is innocent, and what you are doing is wrong. Ethics of independence. I'm ready for that. This is courage. I'm going to lose my job, but I don't agree with what you are doing. I'm going to pay the price. I think that this is also something which is a dimension of freedom, that you can say, ethics of independence, I'm not going to follow the people. I'm ready to stand for what is right, even if it's against my people. And it's coming from a very old tradition, 15th century, a Chinese philosopher helping us to understand in which way you have to be courageous with your own principles and to be independent. Independence means to go against what the people or the majority of the people are thinking. It's not easy, but it's necessary. This is our dignity, when the people are even able to do this. And I think that this is where the courage is so important, adding this to humility that I was talking about, and dealing with intellectual empathy. Let me end with one story. One of my teachers, when I was teaching in a secondary school, I started in secondary school in Geneva. There was one, I wrote a text about him, and it's part of what I was writing in this text, the philosophy of pluralism, because I wrote many texts about what did my students teach me over the years. I was supposed to teach them, and it taught me a lot. And one was a young student, very difficult, very complex. He didn't want to be loved. He didn't want to be respected. He wanted conflict. He had the feeling, I am someone if I'm in conflict with you. And he was always, I was saying something good, he was always contradicting. And once you know, we went together in Africa. He came, we had a trip just for, this was things that I was doing, pedagogical trips to Asia and Africa to help the young students to get a better sense of, you know, other cultures, other traditions. Before that, once, his sister called me, and she told me, look, we are in hospital, and he beat my mother. And it was very, very tough. I went there, and I was just facing this reality, what happened, and I was going to shout at him, and she told me, look, she took me like this, look, this is the way my father was dealing with us, beating us, and violence was the language within the family. And she gave me something which was essential, what I call intellectual empathy, that I understood without justifying. Beating your mother will never be acceptable. But I understood where he was coming from. And when you understand without judging, or without justifying, your judgment is different. Where you understand without justifying, your judgment is different. I understanding where you come from. This intellectual empathy is something which is so important in our understanding of this diversity. That it happens in our daily life is suspend your judgment. Suspend your judgment in the name of your freedom, in the name of your principles, in the name of your courage, in the name of your humility. Suspend your judgment. It might be that you are going too fast in judging the people at the surface of the behavior. Within your religious or communities or your society, this is something which is an important take. And this is where I think there is a central concept that we need to nurture. Coming from that is compassion and forgiveness. So this is also something which is part of all our traditions, but we have to be serious about that. Very serious about that. Compassion. And as the Buddhists are putting it, compassion starts with your own self. To get less a sense of guilt and more a sense of compassion towards yourself. You start, in the Buddhist tradition, you start compassion with yourself. It's not because you are doing bad or that you are wrong or you should nurture the sense of being guilty guilty in everything. It's know to appreciate or to like yourself. The starting point of the journey in our life is this, is know to like your own self, to respect yourself. And not to say, okay, if I'm feeling this, it's... And you know, in the religious communities, it's very important. Very important. Today, I'm facing in the Muslim communities this problem. This, you know, obsession that you are wrong, so God doesn't like you. So I'm wrong, it means that God doesn't like me. The lack of compassion towards yourself, and then towards the other, and to forgive. And this is something that we have everywhere. What is forgiveness? Is to suspend your judgment and to add love. Love more and judge less. This is the starting point of the way you have to deal with people and based on your understanding. So I would say that I found this in all the tradition. When you look at the way Socrates was with his people, not judging. His wisdom is not to judge. In the Christian tradition, exactly the same. The Jewish tradition, the same. In Buddhism, the same. Confucianism, the same. In Islam, the same. This is what we have. And we are not respecting this very deep dimension of our respective traditions. Let us come to this. This is what we find at the summit. This is what we need to reach. And this is where we are getting to it, with humility, with respect, with understanding, and with dedication. But to get that, there is something which is at the beginning, is our relationship with our ego, with arrogance. And I would say that the journey is really this one. It's coming back to the very beginning. And this is why some people don't like this story. But you remember the story of the alchemist? You read that book? he took something which is a very old tradition, which is a Christian mystics and Muslim mystics, they agree on this story. It's exactly it. He translated it into a modern novel. Is in Andalusia. He said, you will get the secret of life in Egypt. He went to Egypt, and in Egypt, he got the answer. The answer is in Spain. Where do you come from? So it's to go there and to come back. But there is one difference. Is the location where you came back after going to Egypt is not exactly the same as the one you left. You know why? Because between the two, there is Egypt. There is the journey. Let us do that with our own tradition. Come back to the essence, but going through this journey towards the others, with the others, in critical discussion and mutual respect. Thank you.